They whispered right behind the kitchen door. The smell of burnt coffee still hanging over the gas stove. She'll die alone. I stood 3 steps away and smiled because 8 months ago, in a foreign town hall by a cold, windy shore, I'd signed my name next to the man I love. They didn't know I was already a legal wife. Didn't know every move they made had been part of my revenge plan for a very long time. My name is Nora Whitfield, and I've spent 33 years learning that family can be your sharpest knife. That Sunday afternoon in my parents' Hartwell kitchen, the November light slanted through yellowed curtains while my mother Marla stirred her 3rd cup of coffee with unnecessary violence. The spoon clinked against porcelain like a countdown. "Dean's bringing Savannah for dinner next week," she announced, not looking at me. "They're finalizing the wedding venue." I nodded, cutting into the dry pot roast she'd overcooked as usual. My father Edgar sat at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone with the intensity of someone avoiding conversation. The dining room smelled of burnt meat and disappointment, the signature scent of every family gathering since I could remember. "You could learn something from Savannah," Marla continued, her voice pitched in that particular frequency she reserved for passive-aggressive lectures. "She knows how to make a man feel needed. Dean says she's already picked out china patterns." The irony wasn't lost on me. Dean, my older brother who'd been fired from 3 jobs in 2 years, was somehow the family success story because he'd managed to convince a woman to marry him. Meanwhile, I'd built kite bridge systems from nothing, turned a garage startup into a company worth 8 figures, but in this house, I was just the daughter who couldn't keep a man. "I need to leave by 3, I said, checking my phone. "Board meeting prep tomorrow?" Edgar finally looked up. "Always work with you. This is why you're alone. Nora, men don't want to compete with a laptop." That's when I heard it after I'd excused myself to the bathroom but stopped in the hallway to check an urgent email. Their voices carried through the thin kitchen door. "She'll die alone," Marla whispered. 33 and not even dating. At least if she gave us grandchildren, all that money would mean something. "The money won't last," Edgar replied. "Tech bubbles always burst. Then she'll come crawling back, and we'll be too old to help her. Maybe we should introduce her to Bill's nephew, the divorced one. The one with the drinking problem. Beggars can't be choosers." I stood there, phone in hand, and smiled, because they had no idea that 8 months ago, I'd stood in a registrar's office in Reykjavik, wearing a simple white dress I'd bought that morning, and married Elias Hart while snow fell against the windows. No fanfare, no family drama, just us, 2 local witnesses, and a promise to build something real. But I wasn't ready to tell them yet. Not when the IPO was 3 months away. Not when they'd already shown me exactly who they were. I walked back into the dining room, picked up my purse, and announced, "I'm setting new boundaries. No more emergency loans, no more co-signing anything, and definitely no more unsolicited relationship advice." Marla's coffee cup froze midway to her lips. "Excuse me." "You heard me." I pulled on my coat, watching their faces shift from shock to indignation. "I love you, but I'm done being the family ATM who gets insulted at every withdrawal." "You ungrateful," Edgar started. "Successful," I offered. "Independent, happily married." I didn't say the last part out loud, but I thought it hard enough to make myself stand straighter. Dean chose that moment to walk in through the front door, Savannah trailing behind him in her designer boots that I knew they couldn't afford. "What's happening?" he asked, sensing the tension. "Your sister's having another one of her episodes," Marla said, voice dripping with false concern. "Too much stress at work. Probably." I looked at them, all this family that saw my success as a threat, my independence as a flaw, my money as theirs by right. In 3 months, after the IPO, after the dust settled, I'd tell them everything. But for now, I had moves to make. "No episode," I said calmly. "Just clarity." As I walked to my car, I heard Savannah's voice through the window. "Is she always this dramatic?" And Marla's response, "Ever since she started making money, it's gone to her head." I drove away from that brick house with its peeling paint and lawn ornaments. Back to my loft in Providence, where Elias would call me at 9 p.m. sharp from his conference in Singapore. Where I could be myself without apology. Where I was planning something they'd never see coming. They thought I'd die alone. They had no idea I was already living my best life, and their worst nightmare was just beginning. The Whitfield family hardware store died on a Tuesday in December when I was 15. I remember the exact moment standing between aisles of unsold Christmas lights while my parents screamed at each other in the back office. The bankruptcy papers were spread across the desk like tarot cards predicting our doom. "This is your fault," Edgar bellowed. "Your stupid inventory decisions." "My fault," Marla shrieked back. "You're the one who gave credit to every deadbeat in town." Dean, 17 and already perfecting his role as the golden child, sat in the truck outside, engine running, pretending none of this was happening. I was the one who had to lock up, turn off the lights for the last time, and walk home in the snow because they'd forgotten about me entirely. That night, lying in my childhood bed, listening to them continue their blame game through thin walls, I made my first promise to myself I would never depend on anyone else for my survival. School became my escape route. While Dean coasted on charm and football prowess, I buried myself in AP classes and coding tutorials I found online. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, called me exceptional. But at home, the word was different. "Why can't you be more like other girls?" Marla would ask, finding me at 2 a.m., hunched over my laptop, teaching myself Python. No man wants a woman who makes him feel stupid. The irony was that I'd tried to be what they wanted. Junior year. I dated Tom Brennan for 3 months, captain of the debate team, pre-law track, the kind of boy mothers approved of. But when I won the state science fair and he didn't even place, he dumped me in the school parking lot. "It's embarrassing," he'd said. "You winning everything." My parents' response: "You should have let him win something, honey. Men need to feel like men." Dean, meanwhile, got caught cheating on his SATs and somehow spun it into a story about test anxiety that earned him sympathy and extra time. He scraped into state college on a partial football scholarship he'd lose sophomore year, but that detail got conveniently forgotten in the family mythology. I left Hartwell the day after high school graduation with 2 suitcases and a full ride to MIT. My parents didn't drive me to campus. They had Dean's summer league game that day. I took a Greyhound bus and didn't look back. The early days of Kitebridge Systems were nothing like the tech fairy tales you read about. No venture capital swooping in, no miraculous connections. Just me in a freezing garage in New Haven, surviving on ramen and determination, writing code until my eyes burned. My co-founder, Marcus, bailed after 6 months when his trust fund daddy offered him a VP position at his firm. "This is too risky," Marcus had said, taking half our potential investor contacts with him. But I kept going. 60-hour weeks turned into 80. I missed Dean's college graduation because I was pitching to investors, missed 3 Christmases in a row closing deals. And when Kitebridge finally turned profitable in year 3, when that first major contract came through, you'd think my family would have been proud. Instead, Edgar asked for a loan that same week, $40,000 to invest in a new venture, some multi-level marketing scheme Dean had gotten tangled in. When I offered to review the business plan first, help them understand why it was a scam, Edgar exploded. "You think you're better than us now? Your own family." I gave them the money. Of course I did. And when that venture collapsed, as I'd predicted, they blamed me for not giving them enough. The pattern was set. I was simultaneously the family ATM and the family disappointment. Smart enough to make money. Too difficult to love. Over the years, I paid off their mortgage twice, covered Dean's wedding to his first wife who divorced him 18 months later, funded Marla's boutique that closed within a year, and bankrolled Edgar's golf club membership he insisted was for networking. Each check I wrote came with a side of resentment, served cold. "Your money won't buy you happiness," Marla would say, cashing my checks. "Success is lonely at the top," Edgar would add, asking for another small favor. They never once asked about my actual life, never wondered why I worked so hard, what drove me, what I dreamed about. To them, I was just Nora, the weird one, the difficult one, the one who'd somehow stumbled into money but would inevitably fall back to earth. But here's what they didn't know: every slight, every whispered judgment, every backhanded compliment was fuel. While they were planning Dean's second engagement party, I was planning something much bigger. The girl they'd forgotten at the hardware store had grown into something they couldn't imagine, someone who didn't just survive their neglect, but thrived despite it. And soon, very soon, they'd understand exactly what they'd underestimated. The email arrived on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing quarterly projections. Edgar's name in my inbox always meant trouble. But this time, the subject line made my blood run cold. Family financial planning. Urgent response needed. Attached were documents for a new house, a colonial in Hartwell's most expensive neighborhood, way beyond their means. The mortgage application was already filled out. All it needed was my signature as co-borrower and guarantor. I called Edgar immediately. "What is this Dean and Savannah need a proper place before the wedding?" he said, as if this explained everything. "The bank requires additional security." "It's just a formality." "A formality? You're asking me to guarantee a $700,000 mortgage? Family helps family. Nora, or have you forgotten where you came from?" The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. I set my phone to speaker and continued reviewing my files while he launched into his usual guilt symphony, how they'd raised me, fed me, kept a roof over my head. Basic parental obligations reframed as extraordinary sacrifices. "Send me Dean's financial statements," I said when he finally paused for breath. "Employment verification, tax returns, credit report. You don't trust your own brother. I run a business, Edgar. Due diligence isn't personal." The line went dead. 20 minutes later, Marla called. "How dare you treat us like strangers?" she hissed. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" "Marla, we gave you life. I hung up and blocked her number for the next 24 hours. Sometimes the only way to deal with emotional terrorism is to refuse to negotiate. But they weren't done. That Sunday, at my cousin Rachel's baby shower, the whisper campaign began in earnest. I caught fragments as I moved through the party. "Won't even help her own brother. Thinks she's too good for everyone now. Probably why she can't keep a man. Too controlling." Savannah cornered me by the gift table, her smile sharp as broken glass. "It must be so hard," she said, loud enough for others to hear. "Having all that success but no one to share it with. Dean and I worry about you, rattling around in that big empty loft. Money can't buy love, you know." "No," I agreed, thinking of Elias's last message, sent from a secure server in Stockholm where he was consulting on a government project. "But it can buy freedom from people who only see dollar signs when they look at you." Her face flushed. "That's a horrible thing to say about your family." "I wasn't talking about my family. Interesting that you went there, though." The real escalation came 2 weeks later. Edgar showed up at my office, a power move, since I'd never given him the address. My assistant, Keiko, looked uncomfortable as she showed him in. "We need to talk," he said, settling into my expensive ergonomic chair like he owned it. He pulled out a folder legal documents, densely typed. "We've consulted with a lawyer. There are ways to structure this that protect everyone." I scanned the papers. It wasn't just about co-signing a mortgage anymore. Hidden in the legal language was something far more sinister: a financial power of attorney that would give them access to my personal accounts for family estate planning purposes. "Get out," I said quietly. "Nora, get out of my office before I call security." He stood slowly, his face cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, cold calculation. "You're making a mistake. Family is all you have in the end." "Then I'll die alone." "Right. Isn't that what you already think?" His face went white. He'd never suspected I'd heard those words. After he left, I called my lawyer, Althea Boone. I need you to run a full financial background check on my family. Every debt, every asset, every questionable transaction. Family issues, she asked carefully. Family threats, I corrected. And Althea, I want to know who holds their current mortgage. Every detail. That night, I sat in my loft watching the Providence skyline glitter like a circuit board. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, probably Dean, since I'd blocked his regular one. You're going to regret this. We know things about you that could ruin your precious IPO. I almost laughed. They thought they could threaten me. They had no idea what I was capable of, what I'd already survived. The hardware store bankruptcy. The years of emotional abuse disguised as concern. The constant diminishment of my achievements, it had all led to this moment. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Althea. Proceed with the investigation. Full scope. No limits. Then I texted Elias. The gloves are coming off. His response came within seconds, despite it being 3 a.m. in Stockholm. Finally, give them hell. Love. My family wanted to play games with legal documents and financial manipulation. They'd forgotten that I'd spent 15 years in the tech world, where corporate warfare was an art form. They saw me as the weird, lonely daughter who'd gotten lucky. They were about to meet the CEO who'd survived hostile takeovers, buried competitors, and built an empire from nothing. The war they'd started with whispers and papers was about to become a massacre. I met Elias Hart at the worst possible moment standing in the rain outside the Harpa concert hall in Reykjavik, my keynote speech for the Nordic Tech Summit still echoing in my ears, my phone dead, and the last taxi disappearing into the October night. You killed it in there, a voice said behind me. I turned to find a man in a slightly rumpled suit holding 2 umbrellas. The presentation about quantum encrypted authentication, though I think you underestimated the processing power required for the 3rd protocol. Excuse me, nobody had ever challenged my technical specifications within minutes of meeting me. Elias Hart. He extended his hand. I run security architecture for Northern Shield Systems. And you're wrong about the processing requirements, but only because you're not accounting for the optimization possible with parallel threading. We spent the next 3 hours in a 24-hour cafe, drawing diagrams on napkins, arguing about encryption standards while the Icelandic wind howled outside. He was brilliant, infuriating, and the first person in years who looked at me and saw my mind first, everything else second. You're not wearing a wedding ring, he observed at 2 a.m. after we'd demolished both our arguments and rebuilt them stronger. Neither are you. Stopped wearing it 2 years ago when the divorce finalized. You never started. My family thinks there's something wrong with me. There is, he said, and my heart sank until he continued. You're too interesting for ordinary people. It scares them. We met again the next morning for breakfast before my flight. Then dinner when he came to Boston 3 weeks later for a conference. Video calls at midnight, debugging each other's code across time zones. He never asked why I didn't mention him to my family. Somehow, he already understood. The decision to marry happened without fanfare. We were walking along Reykjavik's harbor in March, him in town for a project, me ostensibly there for a conference but really just to see him. I love you, he said, stopping suddenly by the old fishing boats. And I'm tired of pretending this is casual. I love you too, I replied. But I need you to understand something. My family is toxic. If we do this, we do it quietly. No announcements, no drama. Just us. Just us sounds perfect. The ceremony took place 2 days later at Reykjavik's City Hall. The building overlooked the pond where Arctic terns nested, and through the windows, we could see Mount Esja dusted with snow. Our witnesses were Björn and Astrid, a couple in their 70s who'd been renewing their vows. First marriage. Astrid asked me while we waited. First and last, I said, watching Elias chat with Björn about fishing. You know this already. She patted my hand. Some people, you just know. The officiant spoke in English for our benefit. Though the ceremony was beautifully simple, No elaborate vows. No performance, just promises. Elias held my hands and said, "I choose you, Nora, not despite your complications, but because of them. You make life interesting." "I choose you back," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake in my chest. "You're the only person who's never asked me to be less than I am." When we signed the papers, Bjorn took a photo with my phone, the only picture we have from that day. We're both looking at each other instead of the camera, smiling like we've just shared the world's best secret. "Why keep it hidden?" Elias asked later, in our hotel room overlooking the harbor. "I understand protecting ourselves from your family, but why the complete secrecy?" "3 reasons," I said, curled against him while the northern lights painted the sky green. "First, the IPO. Any major personal change could affect investor confidence. Second, your mother." His mother was undergoing treatment for lymphoma in Seattle, and the last thing she needed was family drama or media attention if my company's IPO made headlines. And third, I want something that's just mine, something they can't touch, can't poison, can't turn into another way I'm failing at being a proper woman. Is that selfish? It's self-preservation, he corrected, and I'm honored to be your secret. We established our rhythm. He traveled for security consulting. I ran my company, and we met when we could. Sometimes Reykjavik, sometimes Dublin, once in Tokyo. Never in the U.S. Never anywhere my family might accidentally discover us. He rented a small apartment in Portland, Maine, close enough to see me regularly, but far enough from Providence to avoid detection. "This is temporary," he reminded me during a particularly hard week when Dean had shown up at my office again, trying to guilt me into the mortgage. "Once the IPO is done, once Mom's through treatment, we can live however we want." "What if they never accept it?" "Accept you? Then they lose you," he said simply. "And that's their tragedy, not ours." I thought about that conversation now. As Edgar's threats escalated and Marla's manipulation grew more desperate, they thought I was alone, vulnerable, desperate enough for family that I'd eventually cave. They had no idea I went home to video calls with a man who read me security protocols like poetry, who sent me encrypted love notes that required 3 authentication keys to open, who understood that love wasn't about possession but about choosing each other's freedom. "When do I get to defend your honor?" Elias asked during our latest call, his face pixelated but beloved on my laptop screen. "Soon," I promised. "Let me handle the IPO first, then we'll tell them everything." "With maximum drama, with surgical precision," I corrected. "Drama is what they do." "What we do is much more elegant. Revenge served at exactly the right temperature. Revenge served with documentation, evidence, and no room for denial." He laughed, and I felt it across 3 time zones. "I love your brain. Just my brain. Your brain first. Everything else is a bonus." This was what my family couldn't understand, that someone could love me not despite my sharp edges but because of them. That marriage wasn't about making myself smaller to fit someone else's life, but about finding someone who made space for all of me. They thought I'd die alone. Instead, I'd found someone who helped me plan my resurrection. The pounding on my door started at 11:47 p.m. on a rain-soaked Thursday. I knew who it was before I checked the security camera. Only my family would show up unannounced at midnight with the entitlement of people who believed DNA was an all-access pass. Through the video feed, I watched them huddle in the hallway, Edgar holding 2 suitcases, Marla with her mascara running, Dean slouched against the wall, and Savannah clutching a designer bag like a life preserver. They looked like refugees from their own bad decisions. I opened the door but didn't step aside. "It's almost midnight. Let us in," Edgar demanded, trying to push past me. "We're family." "Family calls first. Family doesn't show up with luggage." "We lost the house," Marla blurted out, then immediately looked furious at herself for showing weakness. "The bank accelerated the mortgage. Dean lost his job. Savannah's credit cards are maxed. We need to stay here for a few months while we sort things out." Family sticks together, Dean added, finally making eye contact. He looked older, defeated, nothing like the golden boy who'd once ruled our household. I studied them, these people who'd whispered about my lonely death while planning to pillage my success. The rain had plastered their hair to their heads, making them look like drowned rats. Savannah's expensive boots were ruined, the leather cracking and stained. They'd probably sold their car to get here, taken an Uber they couldn't afford. "I'll pay for a hotel," I said. 2 weeks, prepaid. I'll help you find a rental apartment and cover the security deposit. I'll even connect Dean with a headhunter I know. But you're not living here." "You have 3 bedrooms," Marla shrieked. "We're your family." The same family that tried to trick me into signing over power of attorney. The same family that spread rumors about me at Rachel's baby shower. The same family that thinks I'll die alone. Edgar's face went purple. "You ungrateful bitch. We raised you. You tolerated me. There's a difference." Savannah stepped forward, trying a different tactic. "Nora, please. We're desperate. Don't you have any compassion? Any human feeling? Plenty. Just not for people who see me as a bank account with inconvenient opinions attached." "So you'll let us be homeless?" Dean finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Your own brother. The brother who sent threatening texts about ruining my IPO. That brother—" They exchanged guilty glances. They hadn't expected me to keep receipts. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm transferring $5,000 to Edgar's account right now. That's enough for a decent hotel and food for 2 weeks. I'm texting you 3 apartment listings in your price range and the headhunter's contact. This is help. This is me being family. What you want taking over my home, my life, my space that's not help, that's conquest. You live alone in this huge loft." Marla gestured wildly at the space behind me. "What's the difference if we're here? The difference is consent. The difference is boundaries. The difference is that this is my home, not your backup plan." "We'll go to the media," Edgar threatened. "Tell them how Nora Whitfield treats her family. See how your precious investors like that." I laughed, actually laughed. "Go ahead. Tell them how you tried to commit fraud with fake power of attorney documents. Althea Boone would love the publicity for that lawsuit." They didn't know about Althea's investigation yet, about the evidence she'd found of their attempted financial manipulation. But the mention of a lawyer made them step back. "You're sick," Savannah spat. "No wonder you're alone. No one could love someone so cold." The irony almost made me tell them right then about Elias, about the marriage certificate in my safe, about the man who was probably watching this entire scene through our shared security system, ready to call the police if things escalated. But no, they didn't deserve that truth yet. "The money's transferred," I said, checking my phone. "The hotel information is sent. My offer stands for tonight only. Tomorrow, you're on your own." "Mom's sick." Dean tried one last manipulation. "Her blood pressure is high because she drinks 4 cups of coffee a day and lives on rage. I've offered reasonable help. Take it or leave it." They stood there in the hallway, rain-soaked and furious, realizing maybe for the first time that I wasn't the weak link they'd assumed. I was the one with power, and I was using it to protect myself instead of enable them. "This isn't over," Edgar said finally, picking up the suitcases. "You're right," I agreed. "It's just beginning." I closed the door on their shocked faces and engaged all 3 locks. Through the security camera, I watched them argue in the hallway for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. Marla was crying. Edgar was gesturing angrily. Dean looked shell-shocked. Savannah was already on her phone, probably calling someone else to manipulate. My phone buzzed. Elias. Messaging from his hotel in Vancouver. "You okay?" "Better than okay," I typed back. "I just did something I should have done years ago." Said no. Said no without apologizing. "That's my girl. Want me to come back early?" "No, let them stew. We stick to the plan." The plan. In 6 weeks. Dean and Savannah would hold their second engagement party, their attempt to salvage their relationship after a brief separation I'd heard about through family gossip. They'd send me an invitation, believing they could guilt me into attending, maybe even contributing financially. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead, that Althea had uncovered things that would make their midnight visit look like a gentle tap compared to the sledgehammer coming their way. I walked to my window, looking out at the Providence skyline. Somewhere in this city, my family was checking into a budget hotel, furious and wet, plotting their next move. They thought this was about money, about property, about things they could take. They still didn't understand it was about something much simpler and much more powerful: the right to say no, the right to have boundaries, the right to choose who got access to my life. And soon, at their own party, in front of everyone they'd lied to about me, they'd learn exactly what happened when you pushed someone too far. The girl they'd left at the hardware store, the one they'd whispered about, the one they were so sure would die alone. She was done playing defense. It was time to attack. Althea Boone's office smelled like leather and victory. She pushed a folder across her mahogany desk, her perfectly manicured nails tapping once on the cover. "Your family has been busy, Nora, criminally busy." I opened the file and felt my stomach drop, even though I'd expected bad news. Financial fraud was one thing, but this was systematic, deliberate, and shockingly stupid. "They incorporated a family trust without your knowledge," Althea began, adjusting her glasses. "The Whitfield Family Investment Fund, LLC. They listed you as a managing partner using a forged signature. Then they attempted to use that false documentation to secure a business loan against your assets." "How much?" $2 million. "The bank flagged it because the signature didn't match your corporate records. But here's the interesting part." She pulled out another document. "Savannah Morse is the notary who authenticated the forged signature. She could lose her commission and face criminal charges." I studied the papers. My signature was close but wrong, the way someone who'd seen it many times might reproduce it, but without understanding the pressure points, the rhythm. Dean's work. Most likely, but all 4 of them are listed as beneficiaries. Althea leaned back. "This is conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and forgery. We could have them arrested tomorrow." "No." I set down the papers. "Not arrested. I want something better." Althea smiled the kind of smile that made opposing counsel nervous. "The mortgage. Tell me you found something better. The company that holds their mortgage is Meridian Financial. They package and sell distressed debt to institutional investors. Your parents have missed 4 payments. The house is heading to foreclosure, but it hasn't hit the public records yet. Can we buy the note? Through a shell company already arranged, Cascade Holdings. LLC, completely legitimate, completely untraceable to you. The purchase goes through Monday. You'll own their mortgage by the time their engagement party happens." I stood and walked to her window, looking out at downtown Providence. 20 stories below, people hurried through their lives, unaware of the chess game being played above their heads. "There's more," Althea said. I had my investigator do some digging on Dean's employment history. "Every job he's lost, he was fired for cause-expense account fraud. Mostly small amounts, but consistent. And Savannah. She's been running credit card scams for years, opening accounts in other people's names. Your mother is listed as a reference on 3 of them." "They're all grifters," I said quietly. "I'm not even surprised anymore. The question is, what do you want to do about it?" I turned back to her. "The engagement party is in 3 weeks at the Riverfall Club. They've invited everyone extended family, their friends, Edgar's old business associates, people who've heard their version of me for years. A captive audience?" "Exactly. I want everything ready by then. The mortgage documents, the fraud evidence, all of it. But packaged. Professionally. Not vindictively." Althea made notes. "You want to expose them without looking like the villain." "I want to tell the truth without editorializing. Let the facts speak." "And the marriage certificate?" I smiled for the first time since entering her office. "That's the crescendo. They've built their entire narrative around my being alone, unwanted, defective. When they find out I've been married to someone successful, someone who chose me exactly as I am. It destroys their story completely. Althea nodded approvingly. What about your husband? Is he prepared for this? Elias has been preparing since the day we met. He's flying in for the party. They won't know he's there until the moment I introduce him. You've thought of everything. Not everything. I need one more thing. I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. Security footage from my building the night they showed up with suitcases. And this, another screenshot of text messages. Threats about ruining my IPO. You want a restraining order? I want documentation. Official records that I tried to help, that I offered assistance, and they responded with threats and attempted fraud. Althea's smile widened. You're not just protecting yourself. You're building an airtight case for why you're cutting them off completely. They created this situation. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. She stood, extending her hand. The paperwork will be ready by Friday. The mortgage purchase closes Monday. By the time of the engagement party, you'll hold all the cards. Good. And Althea, I want to set up a trust fund for any children Dean and Savannah might have. Limited, controlled, for education only. I won't punish kids for their parents' sins. Even after everything, especially after everything. I know what it's like to grow up in that toxicity. If there are future kids, they deserve an escape route. I left her office and drove to my loft, where 3 packages waited, all from Elias. Inside the first, a pair of airline tickets. Inside the second, a USB drive containing security protocols he'd designed specifically for protecting my personal data from family intrusion. Inside the third, a simple note. They thought you'd die alone. Let's show them how wrong they were. All my love. E. I called him immediately. Did you hack my lawyer's files to get the timing right? I would never, he said, mock offended. I just happened to book flights for that exact weekend months ago. Pure coincidence. I love you. I know. And Nora. Remember, this isn't revenge. It's revelation. You're just pulling back the curtain they've been hiding behind. He was right. I wasn't destroying them. I was simply refusing to be their secret keeper anymore, their enabler, their scapegoat. Every document Althea had found, every piece of evidence, every forged signature, they'd created it all themselves. All I was doing was bringing it into the light. The party invitation sat on my counter, gold embossed and pretentious. Dean and Savannah request the pleasure of your company as they celebrate their renewed commitment to love. I grabbed a pen and checked the RSVP box, attending with guest. They'd wanted me there as their cautionary tale, their example of what happened to women who didn't play by the rules. Instead, they'd get the truth, served ice cold with documentation. The countdown began. The Riverfall Club glittered like a jewelry box, all crystal chandeliers and inherited privilege. I stood at the entrance in a black cocktail dress that cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage, the mortgage I now owned, and watched the usual suspects mill about with champagne flutes and practiced smiles. Ready, Elias murmured beside me, devastatingly handsome in his charcoal suit. Always. I squeezed his hand once before letting go. He melted into the crowd, just another guest until the moment I needed him. The whispers started the second I walked in alone. Cousin Rachel nearly dropped her drink. Aunt Patricia's mouth fell open. I'd RSVP'd with a +1 but arrived solo to them. Classic Nora, pretending she had someone. Nora. Marla rushed over, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. You came. We weren't sure you would after you showed up at my apartment at midnight demanding to move in. Her face flushed. Let's not make a scene. I never make scenes. Marla. I make statements. Dean appeared. Savannah clutched to his side like a barnacle in beige. Sister, he said, the word sounding like profanity. Good of you to come support family. Oh, I'm full of support tonight. I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter. In fact, I have an announcement. Several. Actually, Edgar materialized as if summoned. Not tonight. Nora, this is Dean and Savannah's moment. Absolutely, I agreed. which is why I waited until now. I walked to the microphone at the front of the room, the one meant for toasts. The crowd quieted, curious about the family black sheep taking center stage. Behind me, the projection screen I'd paid the AV team to set up glowed white. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Nora Whitfield, Dean's sister, the one you've heard so much about." Light laughter rippled through the crowd. I wanted to take this opportunity, while we're all together, to clear up some misconceptions. I clicked the remote in my hand. The screen behind me lit up with an image my marriage certificate, dated 8 months ago. The official seal of Reykjavik, clear and undeniable. First misconception: I'm alone. This is my husband, Elias Hart. Elias stepped forward from the crowd, joining me at the microphone. The gasps were audible. "We married 8 months ago in Iceland. We kept it private to protect our privacy and his mother's health during her cancer treatment." Marla's champagne glass hit the floor. Second misconception, I continued, clicking to the next slide, the forged trust documents. That I'm selfish with family. These are documents filed with the state, showing a trust created in my name without my knowledge, using a forged signature. The notary who verified this forgery. I clicked again, highlighting Savannah's notary stamp. "Is in this room." Savannah went white. Dean started pushing through the crowd toward the AV equipment. Third misconception, I continued calmly, as hotel security pre-warned by Althea blocked Dean's path, that I've abandoned my family in their time of need. Click. This is a record of financial transfers, $200,000 over 5 years, not including the $5,000 I gave them 3 weeks ago when they appeared at my door at 11:47 p.m. The room was dead silent now. I clicked again, showing the mortgage documents. As of Monday, I own my parents' mortgage through Cascade Holdings. They haven't been told yet. Surprise, Edgar and Marla. You're 4 months behind on payments. But here's the interesting part. I clicked one more time. A simple document appeared, a payment plan, reasonable and clear. I'm offering you a choice. Option 1, sign this agreement, make reasonable payments, attend court-mandated family therapy, and publicly apologize for the forged documents. I'll hold the mortgage without acceleration, and we all move forward. Or, Edgar shouted from the crowd. Or option 2, I proceed with filing charges for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Savannah loses her notary license and faces jail time. You lose the house immediately. And this, I clicked to the final slide. Audio waveforms visible. Becomes public. I pressed play. The recording from my home security system filled the room. She'll die alone. At least if she gave us grandchildren, all that money would mean something. Beggars can't be choosers. Then the later threats. You're going to regret this. We know things about you that could ruin your precious IPO. I stopped the recording. That's my family discussing me when they thought I wasn't listening, and threatening me when I set boundaries. The room erupted. Not at me, at them. Aunt Patricia turned to Marla with disgust. Rachel shook her head at Edgar. The cousins who'd whispered about me for years suddenly saw the truth. You told us she was withholding, someone said to Edgar. You said she was cruel. She gave you $200,000. Another voice. Incredulous. Savannah tried one last gambit, her voice shrill. This is all fake. She's lying. Althea stepped forward from where she'd been waiting. I'm Althea Boone, Ms. Whitfield's attorney. Every document shown tonight has been verified and filed with the appropriate authorities. The fraud investigation is real. The forged signatures are real. The mortgage transfer is real. And if anyone would like copies of the documentation, I have them here. She held up a stack of folders, each one labeled with a name, every major gossip, every flying monkey who'd carried my family's lies. One by one, people came forward to take them. This is revenge, Dean finally managed to say. No, I said, stepping back to the microphone. Revenge would be pressing charges without warning. This is accountability. Elias took the microphone. I've watched Nora try to help you for months while you plotted against her. She's the most generous person I know. and you tried to destroy her because she wouldn't let you parasitize her success. The only revenge here is your own actions coming to light." I looked at my family, Edgar purple with rage, Marla crying real tears for once, Dean deflated, Savannah already on her phone probably looking for a lawyer. "You have 48 hours to decide," I said. "Option 1 or option 2. Althea will be in touch." As we walked toward the exit, the crowd parting like the Red Sea, I heard Cousin Rachel say loudly, "I can't believe we listened to them about you." At the door, I turned back one more time. "Oh, and the IPO went through yesterday. Kitebridge is now valued at $200 million. Not bad for someone who was supposed to die alone." Elias and I walked out into the night air, leaving behind the wreckage of 33 years of lies. My phone was already buzzing, relatives apologizing, friends reaching out, the truth spreading like wildfire through every network my family had poisoned. "How do you feel?" Elias asked, wrapping his arm around me. "Free," I said, and meant it. The 48 hours passed in complete silence. No calls, no texts, no midnight visits. For the first time in my life, my family had nothing to say to me. On Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp, Althea called. "They're here, all 4 of them, and they want option 1. The payment plan, the therapy, the apology, everything." I sat back in my office chair, looking out at Providence waking up below. "Good. Make sure the therapy is with Dr. Morrison. She specializes in toxic family systems. Already arranged. They're signing now. Edgar's hand is shaking. And the apology. Public. Published in the Hartwell Gazette and the Providence Journal. I wrote it myself factual. No room for interpretation." After she hung up, I sat alone in my office, waiting to feel something. Victory satisfaction. Instead, there was just quiet. The kind of quiet I'd never had before. No guilt. No obligation. No voice in my head saying I should do more, be more, give more. Elias appeared in my doorway with coffee. He'd extended his stay indefinitely, setting up his own office in my loft's second bedroom. "You okay?" They signed. "I know. Althea copied me. How do you feel?" Like I just ended a 33-year war I didn't start. He set the coffee on my desk and perched on the edge. "Want to know what I saw at that party after we left?" "Tell me." "Your cousin Rachel cornered your mother, told her she was disgusted. Your Aunt Patricia returned a birthday gift Marla had given her last year, said she didn't want anything from someone who could treat their own daughter that way. And Dean. He stood there while Savannah screamed at him for involving her in fraud. They broke up right there, in front of everyone. They'll get back together. They always do." "Maybe, but everyone knows who they are now. The masks are gone." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then saw the area code Hartwell. "This is Mrs. Morrison from next door. I've known you since you were 5. I'm sorry I believed their lies. You deserved better. You always did." Then another, from a high school classmate. "Saw the newspaper announcement about your marriage. Congratulations. Your parents never deserved you." And another, and another. Years of poison being drawn out. Truth acting like an antidote. "I need to go somewhere," I said suddenly. Elias didn't question it. We drove to Hartwell, to that old hardware store that had been converted into a coffee shop. I stood outside, looking at the windows where Christmas lights had once gathered dust, where I'd learned that family could fail you. "This is where it started," I told Elias. The bankruptcy, the blame, the moment I realized I was on my own. "You're not on your own anymore." "I know, but I needed to be. For a while. To prove I could." We went inside, ordered coffee, sat at a table that might have once held paint cans. The new owners had kept some of the old fixtures' pegboard walls, industrial shelving, ghosts of what was. "Do you forgive them?" Elias asked. "No, but I forgive myself for trying so hard to earn love that was never available. And I forgive that 15-year-old girl who thought it was her job to fix everyone. My phone rang. Althea. The announcement runs tomorrow, she said. Full page, as specified. Your parents also wanted me to tell you something. I don't want to hear it. I told them you'd say that. But Nora, the therapy is already working. Dr. Morrison says your mother broke down completely in the first session. Your father admitted he's been jealous of you since you got into MIT. It doesn't excuse anything, but maybe they'll be better people for whoever comes after me, because there is no after Althea. I'm done. Understood. Oh, and the restraining order was approved. They can't come within 500 feet of your residence or workplace. After I hung up, Elias and I sat in comfortable silence, watching Hartwell continue its small-town mourning people who'd known my family for generations, who'd believed every lie, now reading the truth in black and white. What now? Elias asked. Now we live without shame, without secrets, without apology. We build our life on our terms. Starting with moving you out of the guest room and into our bedroom properly. Then maybe a real honeymoon. Somewhere warm, somewhere no one knows the Whitfield name. I love you, he said simply. I love you too. Thank you for waiting until I was ready to fight back. You were always ready. You just needed to believe you deserved better. I looked at the hardware store walls, at this place where my family's first failure had bloomed into years of resentment and manipulation. Tomorrow, their public apology would run. They'd make their payments. They'd attend their therapy. They'd learn to live without me as their scapegoat and bank account. And I'd learn to live without them entirely. Let's go home, I said to Elias. Which home, Providence or Portland? Wherever you are, that's home. We left the ghost of the hardware store, hand in hand, walking into a future where family meant choice, not obligation, where love meant acceptance, not conditions, where I was no longer alone because I'd never been meant to be. I'd just been surrounded by the wrong people. They'd whispered I'd die alone. Instead, I'd killed the part of me that believed them, and I'd never been more alive. The champagne flute sat untouched on the Riverfall Club's abandoned head table, lipstick mark on its rim like a signature. The party was over. The truth had been served, and I'd returned the room to exactly what it deserved: silence. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Nora's situation? Your experiences and perspectives make this community special.